Well, hello again. Welcome into 1017 FM, 710 Keel. Welcome into another edition of Strategies for Living. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan, way down there, grinning like a Chessy cat on the other side of the broadcast table. There she is, PLPC, Carla McCormick.
Hey, Dave.
How you doing?
I'm doing great today. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. I care.
Thank you.
I care greatly, and so does Rapid Ruben Wright.
I do. That's true.
We do care greatly about your well-being.
Thank you very much.
And I was talking to a listener earlier today, and she was saying how much she enjoys the program.
Wow. Well,
And
thank you, listener.
yeah, and she was saying how much she enjoys KEEL as a in its entirety. And KEEL does have some great programming on, but she said you guys are different. Yeah, just a bit.
I'm going to take that as a compliment.
Yeah. Well, we're going to choose that way. Well, Robert and Erin, great program in the morning to get us up and awake and
Educate us on the happenings of the community.
What's going on in the community? What's going on in the world today? Moon is Louisiana's Rush. Can't get better than that. Then the old boy himself. I mean, how do you get better than Rush Limbaugh and then Sean Hannity and American Ground? But
Don't forget about Art Bell.
Oh, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to forget Art Bell. No.
I love those Bigfoot stories.
Oh yeah, well, he's a little different.
Yeah,
too,
right. He's pretty different.
He's kind of like us. He's a little different, but it's what she was saying. I did take as a compliment, and she said, you guys even sometimes sound a little like you're espousing stuff from the East.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I got me thinking, and I dug back and found an article that I wrote several years ago for the Shreveport Times, and we'll share a little bit about that philosophy from the East today. Can we do that?
I would love
Sounds
to
good
do
to
that.
me.
I like it when we go.
Because Reuben's from the East.
Yeah.
Minden, but it's
Yeah.
the East. Folks, thank you for tuning into Strategies for Living. We are presented by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of North Louisiana. And they've been helping individuals and families for 60 years now. We're also brought to you by Jerry Anderson, State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacob's Well, Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. We'll be back to shake things up. We'll be back here on Strategies.
Great balls of fire. I let you love what I thought it was mine. You came along.
If we're talking addiction prevention, Yeah, just taking care of business here on Strategies for a Living.
Every
101.7 FM, 710 Keel. And PLPC, Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist, David McMillan, and our wise man from the East, Reuben Wright. Okay, do you know the Tao Te Ching?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit?
I am not an avid student. I know enough to say I know about it.
So the listener made me begin to think when she said, you know, you guys even share a little wisdom from the East. The Tao, according to tradition, was written around the 6th century BC. And it was, you know, traditionally it has been credited to Lao Tzu. Literally, that name means old master. A record keeper at the Zhou dynasty. The true authorship of the text and the date of the composition it's still debated. But the oldest excavated text dates to the late 4th century BC. So we know that it's at least that old. Tao literally means way. You know, but was extended to mean the way. So the term, which was used by other Chinese philosophers, including Confucius and Mencius and Mozi, has special meaning within the context of Taoism, where it implies essential, unnameable process of the universe. So, you know, there are some really life-changing lessons within the Tao that one can wrestle with from this wise old man named Lao Tzu, if we accept that he was the author. You know, and it's interesting to me, Carla and Reuben, how much both of you know that I'm interested. I know you guys are interested in you know, all ancient literature, including from the West, our Bible.
Right.
How much of our Bible, when you look at some of this as basis, how much of it appears and reappears, you know, in sacred text throughout history?
Well, and then last night we were just talking about A Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
So, you know, so much of that is, you know, along the same
same lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that you know you talk about in the Tao is that how do you win the world? You know, how is the world, quote unquote, won?
Let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah. Letting go. Isn't that interesting? You know,
Christians would say, give it to God. Kind of the same thing, huh?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the same thing, or in the sense of the parables of Jesus. I mean, how many of those take what you think you know and turn it upside down? One of the things I worry about with the parables today is we don't hear them as Jesus's hearers would have heard them.
You mean in the same context?
Well, in the same context and in the same way. What I mean is that over the 2,000 plus years that we have had the parables available to us, certainly even if we're not Bible believers or Bible readers, we study the parables as part of literature in college. You know, a course that I remember taking in undergraduate was the literature of the Bible, where that was not taught from a religious, you know, context, but from a literature context, and in that sense, I worry that we've watered the parables down. For instance, the parable of the Good Samaritan. We don't hear that the way Jesus's hearers would have heard it. You know, because we have heard it over and over and over, and we're accustomed to it. And I hate to say this, but, you know, today a Samaritan. Let me start this way. A Samaritan. We have to understand that a Samaritan was the lowest of the low. Dogs, literally, to Jesus's Jewish hearers, dogs would have had more value than a Samaritan. A Samaritan just did not have any. It wasn't worth anything. Period.
They had no rank, no
rank,
class,
no class,
in
no
society.
They were below. They were subhuman to Jesus's hearers, and for Jesus to have made a parable, to make a story, to make a point, and make a Samaritan the hero. Because we all know the story of the Good Samaritan, right?
Right.
So the priest passes by the person who's been robbed and beaten up and left for dead. And then a person of the law passes by, right?
Right.
And leaves the person. And of course, Jesus's hearers would have understood maybe what we don't understand. Well, why did the priest pass by? Well, because if the priest was probably on the way to the temple, if he had touched a dead person, he would be unclean. He wouldn't have been able to go do the temple, do his duties at the temple.
He couldn't go into the temple.
And if the other person was headed to the temple, and he would be unclean. He would if he would have touched a corpse, which apparently the guy in Jesus's parable looked dead, right?
Right. He was beat up pretty badly.
He was beat up pretty badly, but the Samaritan, treated him. He stopped and he took care of him. He bound his wounds up. He put him on his ride and took him to the inn. Paid the innkeeper. Said, "Hey, if there's more to be paid, I'll catch you when I come back through here." So Jesus just simply raised the question: who treated him with more love and kindness? I'm paraphrasing all of this. Right. But Jesus's hearers would have been incensed, by Jesus making a Samaritan the hero of the story. And I know I'm gonna go out on just real thin ice now. But perhaps if we wanted to hear the Good Samaritan in the same way that Jesus' hearers would have heard it today, perhaps we would say the good ISIS terrorist.
Or I was thinking the good, Angola convict.
Yeah. Pick the lowest of the low.
The life sentence, death penalty guy.
Yeah. And again, because we've got to understand that Jesus's hearers obviously were incensed to the point of anger, because what the parables did, and the prodigal son is another one that's illustrative of that. But it took everything that they thought they knew and it turned it upside down. And that's what Lao Tzu is doing when he's saying the world is won by letting go. By letting go, it all gets done. When you try, the world is beyond winning. Our guest last evening, Gary, has a few sayings. The first of which is, life is an irreconcilable phenomenon. So none of us are getting out of here alive.
Right. Yeah. No matter what we think.
No matter what
how
we
hard
think.
we try.
Right. And yet our ego would have us believe that, we can do it. So therefore the master acts without doing anything and teaches without saying anything. These things arise and she lets them come. Things disappear and lets them go. She has, but doesn't possess. Acts, but doesn't expect. When her work is done, she forgets it. That's why it lasts forever. I don't know about you, but when I read something like that, my little mind goes...
Yeah, tilt.
He who clings to his work will create nothing that endures. Now, think about that. I mean, that's in that same line. It takes what we think we know, and what we've been taught. Work hard, nose to the grindstone. Just do it. Work. Put the effort in, and yet he who clings to his work will create nothing that endures. The world is won by letting go.
So excuse me, is he saying that when we make our life's mission our work, and we put all of our energy into our work, then all of a sudden it becomes our God, so to speak. It has power over us instead of us having power over it.
I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, because clinging, what is clinging? He who clings to his work makes it his whole identity, makes it her whole self. When we do that, we lose balance, don't we?
Well, kind of like we do with our possessions. When we talk about money, or even in the Bible we talk about idols. So anything can become an idol.
Absolutely. Money,
even another person,
stuff, people, relationships. Absolutely. We are we're talking wisdom from the East today, talking about the Tao Te Ching and Lao Tzu. We'll come back, talk more here on Strategies.
Operator, oh, could you help me place this call?
And welcome back. Welcome back into 1017 FM, 710 KEEL. Welcome back into Strategies for Living, PLPC. Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist, David McMillan, and literally kind of grazing on the Tao Te Ching today. And you getting your fill here?
I love this stuff.
Yeah. When you let go of who you are, you become who you might be.
So what does that say to you? What does that mean to you? Break that down.
Well, so again, to me, when I look at that, I think of what we call a lot on this program. We've talked a lot about the ego, and not the ego in terms of, I'm big headed and I can't get myself through the door, but the compilation of my messages and beliefs and stories.
Your operating
My
system.
operating system, yeah, that just runs in the background. And it contains a lot of things that, we operate on that we just take for granted. We never get out and question. And so I've got to be willing to let go of that. Again, it sounds a lot like Jesus to me.
Yeah.
Become like little children. Well, what does that mean, maybe let go of all of those things that you think all of that pile of messages and beliefs and stories.
I'm too old. I'm not smart enough. That'll never happen for me. That's good for other people.
Why are we having such a hard time today talking to each other? Why is one group having such a hard time talking to another group? Why are we so divided?
I think we, I'm going to go back to one of my favorite words is empathy. I think that we lack empathy.
Yeah, but why do we lack empathy? Because we're not listening to each other. One of the things that in our work with couples that we talk about, one of the basic things that we try to teach early to couples is good communication where you seek to listen to the point to be able to mirror back what that person has said. You don't have to say it back word for word, but you can listen to the point of being able to mirror back and essentially say, if I understood you, Carla, you said, and I say it in my words, and then I ask you, did I get that right? And you're either going to tell me, well, yeah, you got it, or no, you didn't. If I didn't, okay, well, tell it to me again, because I really want to get this. So to deeply listen to each other. And then to go beyond that to the point of saying, okay, well, if I've heard you correctly, and I'm going to put myself now in your shoes, well, that makes sense to me. I can make it make sense to me. That's understanding. And then validation is the final step. Well, if I can put myself in your shoes, if I've heard you and I know where you're coming from, then you must feel blank. And you'll tell me, yeah, that's exactly how I feel, or no, I don't. And guys, we can do that. And we try to teach couples how to do that. You can do that without agreeing with the person. See, that's the key. The key is to listen to the point, and that's what I think one of the things this aims at. When I let go of who I am, I become what I might be. And who I am so many times is that compilation of all that operating system, all those messages and beliefs and stories about myself and about the world that block me.
I'm a liberal. I'm a Christian. I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative.
Yeah.
I'm a
Mennonite. I'm a Bolshevik. I'm a, whatever.
Right.
I'm from Cedar Grove. I'm from whatever.
I'm right and you're wrong.
Right.
You know. Well, and I think that's hard. I think that if we don't teach people, and maybe we don't teach our kids that I can hear you, I can understand what you're going through, and I can still have my own feelings and maybe even disagree.
Yeah, we can listen. That's what I think. Why I think we lack. I think you're right on. We can't empathize. But why can't we empathize? Because we're not deeply listening. And when we deeply listen to someone, we're relating to another person as a fellow human being.
Do you think that kind of we get stuck in the trap of needing to be right?
Oh, the ego, big time. Yeah, absolutely.
And then, all of a sudden now we're not fighting about, did you pay the water bill? It's, what happened last Thanksgiving at your mama's. And then I need to be right. And for me to be right, I'm going to pull my whole arsenal out.
Yeah.
And I'm going to beat you up until I'm right and you're wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's again.
And then we both lose.
Yeah, yeah. If it's a matter of when all couples, and again, this is just basics that we try to teach in the therapy room. All couples are going to fight. They just are. Conflict is inevitable in any kind of relationship. So you've got to be able to communicate at a deep level, and that means deeply listening. The listening where you can mirror, you understand, you validate, and then there's got to be a method to resolve conflict, to do conflict resolution, so that it's a win-win. Because if it's win-lose, it's lose-lose.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you walk away wounded and hurt and I beat you up,
it's lose. We've both lost. And again, that's not something that the ego, the operating system, would have us believe. If you want to be given everything, give everything up.
including your need to be right.
Yeah. If you want to become whole, let yourself be partial. If you want to become straight, let yourself be crooked. If you want to become full, let yourself be empty. If you want to be reborn, let yourself die. If you want to be given everything, give everything up. Again, sounds a lot like this guy Jesus to me, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And this is again, we think it dates back to the 6th century BC, but at least to the 4th century BC. And so makes you think, doesn't it? Stretches you.
It does stretch you.
Yeah. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power.
Wait, say that again.
Okay. Knowing others is intelligence.
Okay.
Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power.
Oh, I don't know that I've heard that before.
There's a book title I interviewed back when he was alive, the author of a wonderful little book called Power versus Force. Dr. David R. Hawkins was the author. And I love the title. I like the book, but I love the title because one of the points that he makes is that so much of our world is about force. If I'm bigger than you and I have a bigger arsenal or I have bigger guns, bigger weapons, that's force. But power, this is pointing at what true power is. True power comes from within. And Dr. Hawkins claimed power, and you can look through history. Look at World War II. The West was defeated. We were beaten. There was a point that we didn't have the force. But what did we have?
The A-bomb.
Well, eventually, yeah, we had eventually. But again, before that, we had we took down Hitler. Eventually, there's all kinds of stories of what the British went through, even before our involvement and the United States' involvement into the war. But it came from power. It came from something deep within. That trumped force, and will every time.
Well, when you talk about the Dalai Lama, he has no country. He has no army.
Yeah.
He has what? I don't know that he has much wealth.
Yeah.
But look how many people follow, adore, and respect and hang on every word he says.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And and what is he? And to me, that's power.
That's power. Yeah. So knowing others is intelligent. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power.
How do you master yourself?
Well, you begin to wrestle with, those questions we've talked about
Oh,
before.
your magic
Who
questions.
who am I? What am I doing here? Where am I going? All religions basically try to present those answers to us, but ultimately, and I think that, it's said well in the Old Testament, the wrestling with the angel of death. Was it Jacob?
Jacob.
Jacob
He-
wrestling, and at the end, he survived that wrestling and was rewarded with the name Israel. Well, what does that tell? Which is God's people, the chosen people. What does that tell us? It invites us to wrestle. It invites us to grapple and to wrestle, and that's what we have to do. I mean, with no disrespect to any religion, religion can bring us to kindergarten, but we then have to we then have to enter. We then have to engage. We have to get curious and become students and wrestle. Again,
Jacob means deceiver. I think the name Jacob means deceiver, right?
you're
And
right,
he
yeah.
deceived his brother out of his birthright. So he was living up to his name. And he decided that's not who he wanted to be anymore. So he wrestled with the angel. And I think the story, if I remember correctly, the angel was going to leave. And he said, no, 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 you can't leave until you bless me. And so, I mean, that was determination. That was, that was,
fortitude,
yeah.
true strength.
Grit.
Again, true power from within. Yeah, yeah, and power again trumps force every time, and that's something that perhaps our world is. Maybe we're too quick to receive, whether it be from our churches, our pulpits, or our political pulpits.
Political leaders.
Maybe we're too quick to receive and to not question. Well, I'm part of this group or that group, so here are the questions and here are the answers.
Here are the rules
Here,
to be
yeah.
in this group.
Yeah, and does that get the job done? Does that really get the job done? I don't know. Or has it created a divide? Has it created a divide that we're all experiencing today, whether it's on a local level or a regional level or a national or world level?
You're on this side and I'm on that side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Labels sometimes I think can do that.
We're wrestling today with the Tao Te Ching. Carla's teaching us. We'll be back. Welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. 1017 FM, 710 KEEL, and PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan, talking about wisdom today. The wisdom from the East, the Tao Te Ching. Just fascinating how much this, how much Christianity and the message of that Jesus came to teach just, parallels and involved with all of this, and so you see perhaps in humanity, God has installed God's self, right, someplace.
Yes.
Yeah. How did Moses come up with with what Moses came up with? How did Muhammad receive what Muhammad came up with? How did how did Jesus receive what he received? Wrestling and grappling and being open, being ready to receive, even to the point of
dying.
Yeah.
I mean, and he he was human. He said, what did he say, Father? If this can pass, let it pass.
Let it, yeah.
I don't
Let me get out of here.
This.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to go through.
And
this.
yet, not my will, but your will be done. And so, you got to give yourself up. Here's another one. When you realize all things change, there is nothing you will try to hold on to. If you realize that all things change, nothing you try to hold on to. If you're not afraid of dying, there is nothing you cannot achieve. If you're not afraid of dying, there is nothing that you cannot achieve.
Because you're not afraid.
No, but all fear really is that, isn't it? It comes down to, if we're honest with ourselves, if we go deep enough, what is there to be afraid of? How many Christian mystics, going back to Paul and back to the source himself, Jesus, said and say in so many ways, be not afraid. Don't be afraid. And so what's really being said here? You don't have to fear dying, because that's the ultimate fear. If you realize that all things change, there's nothing you'll try to hold on to. If you're not afraid of dying, there is nothing you cannot achieve. That's powerful.
Some of these quotes, I keep thinking of Mother Teresa, and I was looking for the quote. What is this one? If I have found the paradox that if you love until it hurts, there can be no more hurt, only more love. And I think all of these things.
That's Mother Teresa said that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's about back to what we talked about, letting our ego, our walls down, our barriers, and just letting what is be.
Yeah, she's now Saint Mother Teresa.
Yeah,
made her a saint.
She's someone I would really like to study, because she
wouldn't-
started off just so normal.
Wouldn't you love to sit? In fact, she started off as a nun teaching very rich little English kids. And, she was set. She was really set. She had a great life. And she threw it all away and said, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to India to care for the poorest of the poor. And think of the miracle there. Think of the miracle there at a time within the Catholic Church where no woman was becoming a nun.
Right.
Nobody was doing that. Very few. Mother Teresa filled up her convents because her people resonated with that little woman's power. She was truly...
When we talk about power.
She was truly a rich woman. And not in the sense of worldly riches, because although, Mother Teresa could pick up and she could have had steak every night. She could have flown any place in the world that she wanted to fly because, she had that kind of a power. She didn't, not money in her bank account, but true power. And,
Because she knew who she was.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this next one for the Tao, kind of melds into that. Be good to all. Treat those who are good with goodness, and also treat those who are not good with goodness. Thus, goodness is attained. Be honest to those who are honest, and also be honest to those who are not honest. Thus, honesty is attained. Wow.
Doesn't she have a quote like that? If people are mean to you, be kind.
Yes.
If people are ugly,
Yes.
be kind
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
I don't. And that's what she's saying. Just keep being kind. You keep doing you.
Yeah. When you realize there's nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. If you realize that you have enough, you are truly rich. Be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there's nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. That's powerful.
And then I'm thinking Mother Teresa, and then I'm thinking back to Juan Miguel Ruiz and the Four Agreements and how those fit into everything that we're saying.
Yeah, don't make assumptions. Don't take anything personally. Be impeccable with your words.
And do your best.
Always do your best.
Yeah.
And the fifth agreement, be open, but be skeptical of everything.
All of these things go together. It's putting our own pride and our own egos aside.
Yeah. Some other sayings from the Tao. The wise man is one who knows what he does not know.
Yeah. How many times have we heard that?
The wise man is one who knows what he does not know. What is a good man but a bad man's teacher? What is a bad man but a good man's job? If you don't understand this, you will get lost, however intelligent you are. It is the great secret.
That's a good one.
Yeah. What is a bad man but a good man's job? What is a good man but a bad man's teacher? If you don't understand this, you'll get lost, however intelligent you are. It is the great secret. You hang around long enough and you understand why Jesus would say, love your enemies, embrace your enemies, love your neighbor as you love yourself, because we're all the same, right? There, but for the grace of God, go
Right.
I, right? But when it comes back around, who are our greatest teachers? The people along the way who possibly disappoint us the most,
Or hurt us.
Or hurt us the most. And eventually, can we get to the point of saying, thank you? Thank you.
Well, and people often say that I'm grateful for everything that happened and I have no regrets. Well, I do have regrets, and I'm not grateful for everything that has happened, but I am grateful for the lessons I've learned. And
Yeah.
I will tell you that my biggest growth has always come through the hardest, most painful times of my life. Those are the times that put me on my knees and made me surrender. And I think through that pain comes the growth.
So this next quote really speaks to that. If you think about it, new beginnings are often disguised as painful endings.
Yes.
How many times have we been broken up by a loss? Whether it's a divorce, whether it's the loss of a job, whether it's
A loss of a business.
loss of a business, only to find out 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, we wouldn't have this opportunity. We wouldn't have this relationship. We wouldn't have this job had we not lost that one that so devastated us. New beginnings are often disguised as painful endings.
Yes, I would agree.
We are contemplating what the wisdom of the East can teach us today. Your own strategies. We'll be back to wrap up just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living on 1017 FM 710 KEEL. Marriage and family therapist David McMillan, PLPC. Carla McCormick, Reuben Wright, talking about the Tao and knowledge and humility. Knowing others is wisdom. Knowing the self is enlightenment. Mastering others requires force. Mastering the self requires strength. He who knows he has enough is rich. Perseverance is a sign of willpower. He who stays where he is endures. To die, but not to perish, is to be eternally present. Deep stuff.
Very deep stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think what's most interesting to me is how, you know, so much of this correlates with our beliefs, you know, my belief system as a Christian anyway. I mean, you know, it's not that different than what I was taught or what I believe about Jesus and the Bible and Christianity. None of this is a stretch or a leap.
No. And when you boil it down, I mean, you know, we find the things to fight, even within Christianity. I mean, even within Christianity, I think I read a statistic where there was 44,000 different denominations. I don't. That can't be right, but that's the number. But you know, we divide so, and we focus not on what we have in common, but on what we disagree on.
It's so funny.
You know, it's crazy.
I grew up Catholic, so I went to Catholic school my whole life. When I went to college...
That's what's wrong with you.
Yeah, I know. When I went to college, somebody said something, "Are you a Christian?" I was like, "No, I'm Catholic." That's all I knew.
I love it. I love it. Well, this has been fun. I hope that one of our missions, one of the things that we are here to do, again, is just to take a time out during the day of news and talk and information. It's all great stuff. But just take a time out, let your mind stretch a little bit. Hope we've done that this evening.
Well, and if you hear something that piques your interest, go read more about it, learn more about it, research.
There you go. Thank you, Carla.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thank you, Reuben.
Oh, you're welcome.
And you got Reuben. You got to turn that microphone on.
It was pointed away from my face. I just had to yell.
Eventually, I'll teach you. Folks, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Strategies for Living. We've been presented by KEEL, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. Been helping individuals and families for 60 years now. We are also brought to you by Jerry Anderson, State Farm Insurance. Brought to you by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacob's Well, Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call that you could make, who would you call? What would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For Reuben Wright, for PLPC Carla McCormick, I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. We'll see you next time here on Strategies for Living.